week 2 of our series called Run. And this is a series that man has really been speaking about running the race that God has set before you. But let me clarify something very quickly. Revelations 28 says, liars go you know where. And Pastor Dave tried to say something like, I'm going to run or something. You know that ain't of God. I ain't running nowhere. So Pastor Dave got to get something right with Jesus really quickly today. Come on. We talking spiritually speaking. And we're really talking about running that race before you. And I've titled the message, Keep Running. Keep running. Because I feel like it's really easy to start a race. It's hard to keep running that race. And God's got a race he wants you to run. And here's what I put into the kind of the framework at the very beginning of the message. So if you have your notes, take them out. Holy people, take notes. But here's what I want you to get really quickly is this. Everyone ends up somewhere, but few people end up somewhere on purpose. Everyone's going to end up somewhere in their life, but very few people is going to end up somewhere on purpose. Most people end up in places in their life they don't desire, they don't want. They end up becoming people they don't want to be. They end up doing things they don't want to do. Most people are just wandering through life and not living the life that God has for them, not walking in the purpose that God has for them. And maybe that's because of a series of bad choices we've made. Maybe it's because we've made mistakes. Maybe it's because there's circumstances or maybe there's compromises or maybe sin's got a really good root inside of you. But maybe you're sitting here saying, Pastor Mike, I didn't choose this. I didn't choose the things that's happened to me. I didn't choose the parents that raised me. I didn't choose the abuse I went through. I didn't choose that tragedy. I didn't choose to be betrayed. And maybe you didn't. Maybe you didn't choose. Maybe you were hit with some hard times from an adult figure when you were a child. And they robbed you of things that they shouldn't have never. Maybe you went through an abuse of an adult relationship, or maybe a tragedy just literally rocked you to your core. I heard for you. I feel that, man. I get that. I'm standing here, a person that had many unhealthy things done to me as a child that I wish never happened. I know what it's like to feel like you were robbed of things from your childhood. I know what that's like. And I'm feeling that for you. But here's what you've got to get in your spirit. Though you didn't choose those circumstances, many times you're choosing to stay settling in those circumstances. Though you didn't choose to have that tragedy or those cards dealt to you, but many times we choose to never move beyond them. And here's what you've got to understand. You can either accept those negative environments or rise above them. You can either accept those negative circumstances or rise above them. And to do that, you got to run. And you got to run hard, and you got to keep running after God and the things of God, because it's only there where you find freedom. And you've got to get that deep in your spirit. Listen to what it says here, Paul. He says, don't you realize that in a race, everyone runs, but only one person gets the prize. So run to win. All athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away, but we do it for an eternal prize. So I run with purpose in every step. Run to win. You got to get it in your spirit. I'm going to run to win. I'm not running to stop. I'm not running to finish second. I'm running to win. I'm running the life that God has for me. I'm going to win that prize that God has for me. I'm going to run to win. And you got to get it deep in your spirit. And this is what you need to know. Write this in your notes. You cannot have extraordinary results without extraordinary effort. You can't have extraordinary results without extraordinary effort. Noah didn't pray for a boat to be built. He spent over 100 years building that boy. Come on. Abraham didn't pray when God called him into another land. He didn't pray and he was just magically teleported to that new land. He packed up his family. He packed up his servants. He packed up his livestock. And he literally traveled in harsh terrains across foreign lands and in between foreign invaders, literally get to the places God has for him. When Joshua was called to take over the promised land, he didn't just walk in there and everybody goes, here's the keys to the front door. You can have them. They fought themselves through. You got to work hard. You got to run hard after the things that God has for you. And you've got to know that it takes extraordinary effort to get extraordinary results. And maybe God's putting something in your spirit. Maybe you're like, man, Pastor Mike, I feel like starting my own business. I feel like I'm stepping out. And listen to me, starting your own business, I know it. I started a church. It's hard. Come on. It's like the blood, sweat, and tears. There's moments when you just want to crumble in tears. It's so hard. But when you push through and you never have to live life with that what if in your spirit, and you know that despite the trials that came your way, you ran hard through them, and now you have the confidence of that you are walking in God's plan, it's worth it, right? Maybe God's doing something simple. Well, not simple, but different in your personal life. Maybe God's wanting you to lose weight. How many people know losing weight's hard? Right? Like when everybody's eating cheeseburgers and fries and shakes, and you got to eat a grilled chicken salad with low-fat vinaigrette. Let's just be honest, it sucks big time. Come on. Right? It's not fun. But man, when you got more energy and you don't run out of breath just walking to the store, right? And you feel better inside, and you can actually go shopping and get a shirt that fits, and you're like, yeah, come on, it's worth it. But maybe God's telling you those things. Man, having a healthy relationship and a healthy marriage, it's hard. To make sure your family always comes first and has the priorities of coming first. To realize you don't have to die on every hill and win every fight. And to realize it doesn't always have to be your way. But when you start elevating your spouse, you start realizing it actually elevates your life. And you're filled with purpose and joy, and there's harmony. It's worth it. And to live the life that God has for you is hard. Like you're bombarded with compromises. We're exposed to unhealthy things. We've got years of negative mindsets that are like playing on repeat in our minds. And there's this thing that we've got to push through, and we've got to run despite what the majority is trying to tell us to do. It's hard. But when you start running and you run hard and you don't stop running after the things of God, and you start walking in your identity and you start walking in the confidence of the freedom of God, it's life-changing. It's worth it. But you got to realize you got to push through. You got to work hard. Now, when I'm talking about this working hard, I'm not talking about earning the grace of God. Let me explain this, right? Getting to heaven and getting God to forgive you, that's free. You can't earn that. But becoming the person God has created you to be, Paul is very clear. There's things you got to throw off of your life. There's choices you got to make so that you can walk into who God's called you to be. And to have success in this life and have this success in the journey, there's three things you've got to really understand. You've got to understand success is a combination of patience, willingness to grow, and resilience. If you're gonna find yourself walking into who you're called to be and have success in every aspect of your life, whether it's spiritual, business, whether it's in your family, you gotta understand, you gotta have patience. That it is not rarely a short and sweet journey, but it's a long journey. You also have to have a willingness to grow because it's gonna stretch you beyond yourself. And you gotta have resilience that you're gonna keep running and you're not gonna quit. So today, very quickly, I'm gonna talk about 3 areas of your life, how this applies to our lives. So we can walk and run the race that God has for us. So the first thing I want you to get this, write this in your notes. We must embrace the journey. You gotta embrace the journey. You know what the word embrace means? It means to willingly accept enthusiastically. What? You mean I gotta be enthusiastic about discipline? I gotta be enthusiastic about working hard? You gotta be enthusiastic knowing what that discipline gets you. Knowing what that working hard gets you. Knowing what being committed gets you. You gotta get that deep in your spirit. But here's the problem. Most of us never walk in the design that God has for us, or we never walk in the fulfillment of God, or we never have thriving relationships because we rob ourselves with unhealthy mindsets. And I believe the most crippling mindset or mentality is this. It's not in your notes, but I want to talk about this today. The most crippling mindset is the win, then mindset. Here's what we tell ourselves. When this happens, then I'll do that. When this door opens, then I'll become that. When this opportunity comes my way, then I'll be the leader I'm supposed to be. When, before we ever walk into the then. And this mindset robs most believers, robs most people from success in their life, and literally keeps people crippled from running the race that there is put before them. We want Jeremiah 29:11, man. We want this. For I know the plans I have for you, saith the Lord. They are plans for good and not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope. Doesn't that just sound good? Like wave that hanky. Come on, give you goosebumps and stand up on that. That should be on a card in all your emails, man, right? You should sign it, Jeremiah. We want Jeremiah 29:11. He got a plan for us. Give me a hope and a future. What we don't realize is you don't get Jeremiah 29:11 unless you live in Jeremiah 29:4-10. You don't get verse 11 unless you embrace verse 4-10. Well, Pastor Mike, I don't really want to read verses 4-10. I just like that one. That looks good on the card, right? Guess what? You could put it on a card. I don't know. I'd rather live it in my life. And to get that, you got to understand this. Listen what verses 4-10. This is what the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of Israel, says to all the captives he has exiled to Babylon from Jerusalem. These are captives in exile. Watch what he says. Build homes and plan to stay. Whoa. What do you mean plan to stay? Like, I want to go home. I don't want to be an exile anymore. I don't want to be a captive anymore. You're supposed to got plans for me. Remember, hope in a future. Oh, I ain't got to that part yet. Come on. Plant gardens and eat the food they produce. Marry and have children. Then find spouses for them so that they may have grandchildren. Multiply. Do not dwindle. Watch this. Work for the peace and the prosperity of the city where I sent you into exile. You mean the people that are keeping me captives, the place of exile? I'm supposed to work for peace. I'm supposed to strive to be the best person I could be. I'm supposed to embrace this moment. Yeah, watch this. You got to pray for it. For its welfare will determine your welfare. If you don't embrace the journey and create welfare of where you're at, you won't have the welfare in the future. He goes on to say, don't let the prophets and the fortune tellers who are with you in the land of Babylon trick you. Do not listen to their dreams because they are mine. You lie, telling lies in my name. I have not sent them, says the Lord. This is what the Lord says. You will be in Babylon for what? Whoa, that's gotta be a typo. Come on, son. Like, for 70 years, he means like a year, right? Like, well, or maybe he just accidentally put the TY, like 70 years. But then I will come and do for you all the good things I promised. I will bring you home again. For I know the plans I have for you, saith the Lord. They are plans to prosper you, to give you hope and a future. You've got to understand something. God didn't tell them to get curled up in a fetal position and hope the time passes. He says, embrace the journey, build homes, have children, eat food, and make a difference in the world you're at now. But so many people are like, God, I want my future life. But you ain't faithful in your now life. Why would I give you your future life? I want them dreams, but you can't be faithful in the journey. Well, when you give me them, then I will. That when-then mentality robs you of a future God has for you. Number 2, we must grow in the journey. It's not enough to embrace the journey and willingly accept it. You've got to become who you were called to be in the journey. You've got to allow this to be a moment of stretching and growing. You've got to develop. You need to be the leader now that you hope to be 10 years from now. You've got to become now what you know you'll need in the future. And this is what you've got to get very clear in your spirit. Write this in your notes. When God gives us a dream, he is less concerned with the achievement of that dream and more concerned with who we become in the process. You need to literally star that. So many people think that God gives us a dream so he can use us and abuse us. That ain't God's MO. God's MO is that you become the flourishing person you are called to be, that you walk in your design, that he cares much more about your heart than your work. And this is the catch-22 though. When you start becoming who God's created you to be, and you start living out of that nature of God, and you start seeking wisdom of God, you actually obtain your dreams, and you get the best of both worlds. Not only do you live your dreams, but you live life to your full potential. But it happens when you embrace growing first. But here's what we do. We run right back to the win-then mentality. We'll say things like this in our marriages, right? When my spouse starts treating me better, then I'll be the spouse they need. When they start handling me the appropriate way, then I'll be appropriate to them. Some people just heard that and go, I hope my spouse wrote that down. No! That's not what we're talking about here. We do this at our work, right? When my boss respects me the way I should be respected, then I'll be the employee he needs. When they give me that raise I deserve, then I'll work hard. We do this with God. When you give me some miracles, then I'll be faithful. When you start answering my prayers, then I'll start responding. When you give me your dreams, then I will. It don't work that way. You got to grow in the process. And listen to me very clearly. Anything that's not growing is dying. And too many believers are spiritually dying because they're not growing in the process. Watch what James says. He says, dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy, for you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance, remember that word, it's important, has a chance to what? Grow. So let it what? Grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect, complete, needing nothing. I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty good. Like, who wants to be perfect? Who wants to be complete? Who wants to be needing nothing? Now, let me interject something. Perfection's not what he's talking about. It's impossible to be perfect unless my wife is referencing me. She says, I think I'm perfect all the time. But it actually means fulfillment in your life, that you're going to be fulfilled, that you're going to be complete. You're going to need nothing in this life. He says, but you have to have this endurance. What is endurance? Well, Romans says it like this, Paul. He says, we can rejoice too when we run into problems and trials, for we know that they help us develop endurance. Watch this. And endurance develops a strength of character. A character is a reflection of who you are. Who you are can either be a reflection of God or of this world. Who you are can bear the fruits of the Holy Spirit or the fruits of this world. And your character impacts where you're going. Write this in your notes. Dreams are built on the foundation of character. Dreams are built on the foundation of character. So if you're not willing to grow in this journey, you'll not have the character to have and keep your dreams because you're not becoming who you were called and designed to be. There's a term that's went around the church world for many years. It says, God equips the called. God equips the called. And I understand exactly what they're saying when they say this. They're basically saying that God doesn't just pick the famous or the rich or the most talented. Like, that's not his criteria. He's looking after heart, right? He grabs the underdogs and he rises them up. The problem is we use this statement, God equips the called, and we allow complacency to set into our hearts. We allow the win-then mentality to come in our mind. Well, when God calls me, then I'll get equipped. Well, when God gives me my dreams, then I'll be the leader I'm supposed to be. Well, when that time comes, then I'll start developing myself and my character. That's the wrong mentality. It's actually more like this. God calls the equipped. God calls on those who are stewards in their now. God calls on those who take initiative now. God calls on those who hunger and thirst for righteousness now. God calls on those who desire wisdom and character now. God calls on those who are, while they're watching some sheep, will kill the lion and the bear now. So when they stand before the Goliath, they can stand before the armies and wipe him out. Because listen to me. There's some Goliath killers in here right now, but they're not willing to do the field work to stand before the armies. They're not willing to be faithful when no one else is watching because they only want the praise. They don't want the toil in the soil of what it takes to produce who you're called to be. But you can't get that. So this is what you need to know in your spirit. Write this in your notes. I'm preaching really good. I hope people are hearing me right now. People who are willing to grow in the process are the ones who harvest the dreams. It's only the people who are willing to grow in this process are the ones that actually harvest the dreams. Proverbs says it best like this: those too lazy to plow in the right season will have no food at the harvest. Those that are not willing to develop their character now and to be who they're called now and grow now, you're not gonna harvest your dreams. You're not gonna walk into your future, and you'll rob yourself of where you're going. You got to embrace the growth. Number 3, we must have resolve in the journey. We must have resolve in the journey. Here's the reality. Life's gonna hit you hard. Circumstances are gonna happen. People will hurt you. I think there's some people that think their spiritual gift is just to ruin your life. Come on. They're like, I'm ordained by God to be a thorn in your side, and they work really good at it, right? And that's right. People hurt you. People come your way. And here's the problem though. We live in an imperfect world, but we expect perfect people. And that expectation, when it's not met, builds resentment. And then we resent people. And then we struggle. We get this win-then mentality. Well, when they apologize, then I'll forgive them. When I get justice, then I'll let it go. When they grovel and realize I see their remorse, then I'll accept their apology. The problem is that's not forgiveness, because forgiveness is freeing. That's bondage, because only bondage has stipulations. And bondage doesn't bond the other person, it keeps you bound from who you're called to be. And too many people walk around with resentment in their heart, and it's robbing them of their future. And here's the reality. If you can't move beyond what people do to you, you'll never move into who you're called to be. One of the best stories of this is the story of a man named Joseph in the Old Testament. I don't know if anybody ever remembers Joseph with the coat of many colors, right? And God gives Joseph this dream, and he tells his brothers, and his brothers goes, I can't stand that little punk. He's just favorite. I can't stand. Let's kill him. What? Like, that escalated quickly, right? Like, brothers immediately want to kill you. So they beat him up. They throw him in a pit. They're like, we're about to kill him. They're like, hey, man, let's actually make some money off this fool. He's been annoying our whole lives. Let's actually profit off of this. So then they sell him as a slave to Egypt, betrayed by his family. Closest to him betrayed him. Then he's a slave in an Egyptian home, actually works his way up, actually has a pretty good job, doing pretty well. All of a sudden, the slave owner's wife looks at him and goes, you looking pretty good, get over here. He's like, I'm not really down with that. She goes, you will be down with that. Get over here, give me to my abs. He's like, no. He runs, she screams, rape. The dude throws him in jail, betrayed by his work. Sitting in jail many years. Develops a relationship with people. Actually, God gives him the ability to interpret someone's dream. He tells them, don't forget me when you leave this place. They left the place, but they forget him. His friends forgot him. And then many years later, somehow it comes back. And Pharaoh has a dream that needs to be interpreted, and he interprets the dream. Not only does he interpret the dream, but he gives Pharaoh such wisdom on how to handle the situation that Pharaoh actually makes him second in command of all of Egypt. But he went through a moment of being rejected by his family, by his workplace, and by his friends. Every sphere of influence literally betrayed him. And he's standing in this moment. He just delivers Egypt from all of the famine. And all of a sudden, he is standing, and his brothers are bowing before him. And this is the perfect time to get revenge. This is a perfect time to make them feel what he felt all those years. This is a perfect time to literally allow his title and role to literally give them the justice they deserve. And he responds like this. You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. And there in this moment, he forgives his brothers. He frees them because he understands grace is freeing, forgiveness is freeing. And not only did he free them, he freed himself. And this is what you have to understand. Write this in your notes. Resentment will stop you dead in your tracks. And too many people can't run the race that God has for them because they are chained to people that have hurt them. And they're the ones that literally lock the chain to that person. The other person didn't lock it to you. And you've got to get this deep in your spirit. You've got to let it go. Jesus said it like this. He said, it's impossible that no offense should come. Jesus says, it is impossible that people will not get to a place where they don't hurt you at points in your life. It's impossible to go through life and never have hurts and never have betrayal and never have people that turn their back on you. It's impossible. But he says this and he makes this very clear statement because he's like, why build resentment for something that's inevitable? So he built something in. He said in the daily prayer, something you should pray every single day. He says, pray this, Father, forgive them. Forgive me of my sins, my trespasses, as I forgive others of their trespasses. He says, build it in your repertoire that every single day you will free yourself with forgiveness and forgiving other people because you understand hurt people, but loving people love people, and gracious people give grace, and hopeful people give hope, and people that have been redeemed give redemption to other people. Devil, not today. Come on. I'm going to walk in that. Because here's the deal. You're not fighting against people. You're not fighting against tragedy. And you're not even fighting against mindsets. You're fighting against an enemy that's trying to use them against you. That's why Ephesians says we're not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, against evil spirits in the heavenly places. Therefore, put on every piece of God's armor, so that you'll be able to resist the enemy in the time of evil. Then after the battle, you will still be standing firm. Run that race and run it to win. Don't stop. Very quickly, let me give you some take home. I want to give you some practical things to do in your life that you can keep running this race. And the first thing I want you to do, write this in your notes, I want you to physically write out measurable goals. I mean physically, get a pen, get a paper, and write them out. Goals that just stay in your mind become fantasies. Goals that you write out become a contract that you are going to live by. Write them out. You need to make them measurable too. You can't just say things like, I want to lose weight, right? How are you going to do that? You need to say things like, I'm going to work out X amount of times a week. I'm going to eat X amount of calories a day, because you can measure that. You can look at every single day and say, did I work out today? Did I overeat today? It's measurable. Write measurable goals. And I want you to do it in 3 phases. I want you, number 1, to write personal goals. Why do I say personal goals first? Because if your relationship with God is not right, if you're not healthy spiritually, it's going to impact every area of your life. So maybe you need to write in there, I'm going to give God every single day prayer time and devotion time. I'm going to get up 30 minutes earlier so I can do that every single day. Maybe it's exercising. Maybe it's this understanding that you're going to start working on some hobbies, but write a personal goal. Number 2, I want you to write family goals. I want you to build that into your repertoire. I want you to build in. Maybe you need to build in a date night with your spouse. If you're not dating your spouse, you're heading into a very unhealthy place. Listen to me. Date your spouse. Family night with your children. Build in your, maybe paying off a certain amount of debt and how you're going to do that. Build in your family life. And lastly, you build your career goals. Because listen to me, your career will never elevate your family and yourself, but yourself and your family will elevate your career. They have to come first. But if you can build it in that order, you're going to start walking towards health. So write out measurable goals. Number 2, every day, reflect on your life and where you're going. This is very, very, very important. A purposeful mind is a purposeful life. Every single day, I wake up before everybody else. I sit in the same place. I drink the same cup of coffee. I make every single day, and I literally filter my mind. I literally allow God to clear my mind. I get my mind right that I'm going to honor God today with my day. I'm going to live a life committed to Him, and then I start planning my day in my mind. So I'm not just wandering, I'm walking with purpose. Get your mind right every single day. It takes 15 minutes at the most, but get it cleared. And then number 3, forgive freely. That sounds cliche, that sounds easy, but listen to me. If you can walk in a gracious life, you're gonna walk in freedom. Here, listen, this is important. Me and my wife are very stubborn, dominant people. We fight. Like some people say, oh, you're the pastors, you probably never fight. Nah, we go blows. That's just the reality. We're human. But me and my wife have so much grace and forgiveness that we don't hold on to anything. We don't hold on a grudge. In 5 minutes, we're over it. Because we have that much, because we forgive freely. And if you can start walking through life where you forgive people freely, you're gonna start living very free. And here's the reality. You gotta forgive people because you need forgiveness. How can you ask something from somebody you're not willing to give? Because you're gonna mess up. You're gonna hurt people, you're gonna offend people, you're gonna put your foot in your mouth. And so you need to understand other people are gonna do that to you. But most importantly, you need forgiveness from God. You need forgiveness from God. And very words of Jesus says, if you're at the altar and you got animosity against somebody, you better leave that place and run to them. It means you better leave church to get your heart right. Because there's a thing, understanding that as God forgives you, you have the ability to forgive others. I want to spend just 2 seconds here, very quickly. I want everybody right now to bow your heads. I want nobody looking around. I want right now you have just a little bit of personal time with you and God. And I want you to really picture in your mind, nobody's gonna think this for you. I want you to think this for yourself. I want you to ask yourself this. How is my relationship with God? Am I running the race towards God? Or am I running the race away from God? And don't answer this based on what you think you should say. Answer this based on truth, because guess what? You can't lie to God. He already knows. But you need to think really clearly, what are my actions in life? Are they leading me in the race that God has for me? Or maybe am I running the race the world has for me? And there's a stark difference, because one leads to life and one leads to death. And God desperately wants you to run to life. And if you're in here in this moment right now, maybe you've never talked to God, maybe you've never prayed to God, maybe you've never been to church, or maybe you have, but you've walked away and you're not living life pleasing God. You're at this fork in the road moment. And you can run towards your daddy into his arms and let his free grace forgive you, or you can run away from him and keep running a race you were never called to run. But that choice is yours. But I desperately want you to quit settling and start running into the forgiveness that's yours. And if you're in here right now, don't go one more step running a race you were never called to run. But I want you to accept the grace of God and the forgiveness of God. And it's very simple. The Bible says if you confess with your mouth that you need God in your life and you need his forgiveness and you messed up and you believe in your heart that he died, rose from the grave, and does forgive you, instantly you become saved. And you may say, Pastor Mike, that sounds too easy. Good. Grace was never meant to be hard. It was meant to be chosen. God wants you to choose him today. So I want everybody, with every head bowed, I want everybody to repeat this prayer after me. Dear Jesus, I believe you died on the cross. I believe you rose from the grave. And I believe your blood washes away all sins. Come be a part of my life. I have many sins, but you forgive them all. And today, I commit my life to you. I'm running your race because I am forgiven. I am chosen. I matter.
Hi, family. We hope you enjoyed this week's message, and we pray that it spoke to your heart. If you made a decision today to follow Christ, or maybe you recommitted your life to Christ, we want to hear from you. Send us an email at connect@bloomhere.org so that we can send you the next steps in seeing you bloom into who you were created to be. You can also connect with us on our website, bloomhere.org, or visit our Facebook page, Bloom Church, or Twitter and Instagram @ChurchBloom. We look forward to hearing from you. We love you, and we'll see you next week.